We got to.
All right, is it ever justified to lie? I was just looking through some books in my garage library, and I found this famous scientist, Sam Harris, who wrote a book all on the questions of lying. You know, what if your little kid asks you, is Santa Claus real? What if you're undercover cop? That's lying, but is that good for society, good for you? And so it brings up all these tough ethical questions. I thought an interesting part of the book, you know, the main point he tries to make is very rarely do lies end up benefiting us or people around us. So, you know, there's four main points I got from the book. The first one is that lying is more widespread than we think. Dan Ariely wrote some books on this too, a Duke professor. But he says here about 10% of all words spoken between married couples are in some ways lies or deceit. And he also found that, interestingly, there's some research that shows even white lies, even if they're meant for good, generally degrade the quality of the relationship between the two people or the two groups. The second thing is that, you know, when somebody asks you, for example, he gives an example where his friend, they were at a swimming pool, and his friend said, "Hey man, you think I'm starting to gain weight? You know, do you think I'm overweight?" And that's an example where we want to white lie and say, "No, you look great." And he's saying the outcome is better for both parties when you're brutally honest. So he told his friend, he said, "Look, man," he goes, "I'm not going to say you're fat because you're not fat, but if I was you, I'd want to cut 25 pounds. And he said the next time he saw that friend 2 months later, he had cut 15 pounds, you know, just from that brutal honesty. The third point I thought was interesting was that one of the biggest lies we ever make is to ourselves. You know, he says, he's talking about his mentor that was this professor, and that professor said, "Look, I used to, if people came up to me and said, 'Wow, you'd be a great singer,' and he said, 'I suck at singing. It's bullshit.' He's like, if I lie to myself, if I delude and deceive myself, next thing you know, people spend 10 or 20 years going down the wrong path." In fact, if you saw that little quote that I did, I thought that kind of went viral. I said, if you're having a bad day, don't worry, because back in your hometown, someone's still trying to become a rapper. And it kind of went viral on the internet when I posted that last week. I saw a few guys like the Fat Jewish, that's the name of a funny Instagram account. He had posted it, and it's one of the most popular things that I've written because we all see delusion in our friend. Everybody has somebody back in their hometown who's like 40 years old trying to be something that they have no talent or skill in. And so sometimes when we lie to ourselves, I call that American Idol syndrome. If you saw that video I did with the judge from American Idol, Randy Jackson, who was at my house, you know, they had to deal with that throughout the whole show. And then the fourth point is that what happens with lies, and I thought this was interesting, is they actually feed addiction. He was saying a woman who, let's say, is in an abusive relationship, so she has a black eye, and her friends say, "What happened to you?" And she says, "Oh, I fell down the stairs." That perpetuates the dysfunction, because if she said, "Look, you know, my boyfriend or husband hit me," that would force the dysfunction to a head. It would force some kind of resolution to happen. You know, so he said that addiction is fed by lies. So people, that's why, you know, in the 12 Steps program, if you read about that, it says something pretty interesting. You know, the first thing you have to admit is that you have a problem. And most people can't do that because most people, again, lie to themselves. So, you know, there are people that would disagree with this book. There's a famous scientist named Trivers, an evolutionary biologist, and he says that lies are adaptive. We have them in our brain for purposes of group survival, the betterment of the group. You know, Dr. David Buss talks about that. So, you know, when you read a book like this, I always try to look at the opposite side. Charlie Munger, the billionaire, calls that disconfirming evidence. But I think no matter what the exact answer, and I don't think there is an exact answer. There's obviously times where we got to do things that are complicated. I think the main point is that he makes that is valid is that more often than not, it's a good experiment to really push yourselves to the bounds of honesty, both with others and with yourself. And, you know, it's like I say, with business, you want to make a lot of money, you set up a lot of experiments. And so when I read a book like this, I think of it not black and white, like, oh, this is the gospel truth, or, you know, or try to find every flaw in it. It's like, let me push myself into a new experiment. Try to be, you know, when I would normally say somebody gives me a gift and be like, oh, I love the gift. You know, he tells you how to say, well, it's a nice thought. I don't know if I'll ever wear it, you know, and stuff like that, and kind of push myself. So anyway, so give me your opinion. When do you think lying is justified? All right, talk to you later.